All right, today we're jumping into something wild. It's a high-stakes gamble, a plan to completely overhaul a G7 nation's entire economy in just 100 days.
Okay, let me ask you something. Could you fix an entire national economy in just 100 days? Seriously, imagine you're in charge. Your country's economy is tanking, sliding into irrelevance, and suddenly, you've got the top job. The catch? You've got about 3 months to turn it all around. What's your move? Well, that's the wild question at the very heart of this whole thing. But first, let's look at the problem that got us here in the first place.
Right, so every massive plan like this, it starts with a massive problem. And in this case, the problem wasn't some big sudden crash. No, it was more like a slow-burning fire, a deep crisis of, well, complacency.
So to really get a feel for this, let's start with something you might know all too well, your phone bill. For years, experts have been saying that a lack of real competition in industries like telecom means Canadians are getting hit right in the wallet. And this quote here from an actual parliamentary hearing, it just nails that widespread frustration. Okay, so take that one issue, the telecom thing, and now imagine that problem on a national scale. That's what this fictional scenario is all about. It imagines that same complacency has just infected the entire economy. We're talking decades of companies not investing, not innovating, and then, to top it all off, a sudden trade war with the US kicks off. Suddenly, the stakes are way, way higher. So, the country's on the brink. A new prime minister steps in. In this scenario, it's a figure like Mark Carney. And he's not coming in with some small, careful new policy. Oh no, he's proposing a full-on economic blitz.
And just listen to the framing here. This quote from the plan says it all. It's not just a boring policy point, it's a declaration of war on the way things are. It's punchy, it's aggressive, and it totally sets the tone for what's about to happen.
And we're not talking about a slow 5-year plan here. This thing is structured like a military campaign. You've got Phase 1, shock and awe. Then Phase 2, surgical strikes. And finally, Phase 3, structural transformation. I mean, the names alone tell you everything you need to know. This is meant to be fast, overwhelming, and absolutely decisive.
And the actual proposals, they're every bit as radical as the timeline. I mean, just look at this list. An 18-month ban on big corporate mergers, hard caps on how big banks and telcos can even get, a complete overhaul of real estate investment rules, plus a $50 billion productivity moonshot fund. Any one of these ideas would be a huge political battle that could last for years. The plan here? Do all of them at the same time.
But a plan this huge is just words on a page until you make it law. So how do you actually turn this 100-day blitz into national policy? Well, you don't walk, you sprint.
Just check out this timeline. This massive, super complex bill, the One Canadian Economy Act, it goes from being introduced to becoming law in just 20 days. 20 days. For anyone who follows politics, you know that in parliamentary terms, that's basically the speed of light. We're talking about skipping months, maybe even years of the usual debate and committee studies.
So, the plan becomes law. The government drops its first budget. And this is where the country basically splits in two. Everyone's looking at the exact same set of numbers, but they're seeing two completely different things.
Okay, first up, the government side of the story. The headline number they're pushing is huge and super optimistic. $1 trillion in new investment. The official line is simple. This plan is going to supercharge the economy, create a ton of jobs, and build a stronger country for everyone. But then you have the reaction from the country's biggest public sector union, CUPE, and their take really shows you just how deep the divide is. They see the polar opposite. For them, this isn't a plan for Canada, it's a plan for Bay Street, for the super rich, and it's coming at the expense of regular working families. So let's put these two viewpoints right next to each other. The government says they're focusing spending to get the highest return for the country. The union, they call it short-sighted, inadequate, and destructive. So the big question is, how can two sides look at the same budget and come away with conclusions that are so fundamentally different?
Well, it all comes down to a really important kind of technical change in how the government does its accounting. It's called the capital budgeting framework. Basically, the government decided to split its budget into two separate books. You have operational spending, that's the day-to-day stuff like paying for public services and salaries, and then you have capital investment. That's for big, long-term things like infrastructure and, this is the key part, corporate tax breaks designed to get businesses spending.
And this chart right here, it perfectly lays out CUP's entire argument. See, the government can go out and say, hey, we balance the operating budget.
and you can see that bar is right at 0. But, and this is a huge but, they're only doing it by running a massive $58 billion deficit on the capital side of the books. So from CUP's perspective, the government is balancing the books on the backs of public services, all while borrowing billions of dollars to hand over to corporations.
So let's just recap where we are. You've got this incredibly radical plan. It's been rammed through Parliament at lightning speed, and it has literally split the country down the middle. The government is all in. This is truly a nation-sized gamble.
And make no mistake, it wasn't just the labor unions who were pushing back. A whole coalition started to form against this plan. The Assembly of First Nations warned that their rights could get bulldozed. Environmental groups were furious about projects being fast-tracked. The political opposition called it a straight-up abuse of power. Heck, even one member of the Prime Minister's own party broke ranks and voted against the bill.
But all of this brings us right back to that central question we started with. Inside the government's own plan, there's this incredibly stark warning. They're saying, yeah, the risk of doing all this is high, but the risk of doing nothing, that's catastrophic. That's Canada becoming, and I'm quoting here, the Argentina of the North. So if you're faced with that choice, what do? Do you bet on the radical, risky, and divisive overhaul, or do you risk a slow, steady, and potentially disastrous decline?